In the chaotic, yet electrifying arena of early-stage technology, where ideas collide with execution and dreams burn through cash at a blistering pace, the journey to the first million users stands as the defining trial that separates startups destined to reshape industries from those that fade into the digital background. And to understand how the world's most iconic startups, from Facebook to Airbnb, from Uber to TikTok, from Dropbox to Revolut, engineered their meteoric ascent, we must dive into the underlying psychological levers, growth architectures, and strategic gambles that allowed them to transform small pockets of early adopters into global user bases, numbering in the millions. Every hyper-scaling startup begins not with mass appeal, but with clarity of core value. A brutally simple promise so compelling that the earliest users feel almost magnetically pulled toward the product. Facebook offered identity-anchored social connection. Uber delivered transportation on demand. Airbnb made travel personal and affordable. And each of these companies understood that before reaching 1 million users, they needed 10,000 who were obsessed. This obsession is the spark that fuels virality loops, the invisible engines inside nearly every breakout startup. Hotmail popularized the viral signature line, "Get your free email," which turned every message into a stealth acquisition channel, while Dropbox's legendary referral program rewarded both sides with extra storage, creating exponential expansion through simple incentives that aligned with natural human sharing behavior. But virality alone rarely sustains growth. Which leads us into the next principle: targeted seeding, the strategy of placing the product into communities where adoption can ignite like wildfire. Facebook began at Harvard, then Ivy League schools, then universities worldwide. Tinder launched quietly among USC sorority and fraternity networks, where tight social graphs triggered rapid uptake. And Clubhouse initially positioned itself among Silicon Valley elites to maximize network prestige before widening the gates. These intentional, hyper-focused launch environments allow startups to achieve density before scale because 1 million scattered users are meaningless, but 1,000 deeply connected ones can produce unstoppable momentum. Yet, the architecture of explosive growth extends deeper into the mechanics of frictionless onboarding, a hallmark of companies like Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat, which recognized that lowering cognitive load, zero-effort signups, intuitive interfaces, instant gratification dramatically accelerates the jump from casual curiosity to habitual use. TikTok's algorithm doesn't wait for new users to signal preferences. It delivers immediate dopamine-rich content, pulling them into an endless loop that drives retention and fuels word-of-mouth propagation. At the same time, startups chasing their first million users must master the art of distribution hacking, the creative exploitation of existing platforms, markets, and digital ecosystems to reach audiences far larger than their own channels could access organically. PayPal grew by infiltrating eBay. YouTube exploded when MySpace musicians embedded videos. Airbnb reverse-engineered Craigslist to cross-post listings and siphon traffic. And modern startups leverage app stores, SEO, influencer networks, Discord communities, and API integrations as multipliers of reach. But distribution without retention becomes a leaky bucket, which is why top startups obsess over habit formation, designing experiences that embed themselves into the rhythms of daily life. Duolingo uses gamification loops. Snapchat uses streaks. TikTok uses infinite scroll. And Revolut uses spending notifications, all engineered to convert occasional interactions into compulsive ones. Parallel to user psychology is the strategic mastery of product-market fit iteration, an endless cycle of testing, adjusting, and optimizing until the product resonates so strongly that growth begins to feel inevitable. Brian Chesky of Airbnb knocked on hosts' doors to improve listings manually. Instagram pivoted away from a bloated app called Bourbon. Slack emerged from a failed gaming startup. And countless unicorns were born not from perfect initial ideas, but from relentless refinement driven by user feedback. Once fit is achieved, startups must scale infrastructure and trust through credibility architecture, the subtle but powerful strategies that reassure early users. Uber's map visualization built confidence. Airbnb added verified IDs and secure payments, and fintech startups like N26 emphasize transparency to overcome institutional skepticism. Meanwhile, startups expanding toward the million-user threshold deploy paid acquisition with mathematical precision, using early revenue or venture capital to buy users profitably by balancing CAC, customer acquisition cost, with LTV, lifetime value, an approach exemplified by companies like Calm, Robinhood, and Coinbase, which blended performance marketing with organic flywheels to drive rapid, cost-efficient growth. One of the most overlooked, yet decisive strategies is community orchestration. For startups that scale fastest are often those that turn their user base into evangelists, contributors, or co-builders. Figma empowered designers to collaborate publicly. Reddit grew through self-governing sub-communities, and Notion's template creators became an informal acquisition army. This community-driven momentum amplifies retention and acquisition simultaneously, giving startups a structural engine competitors struggle to replicate. And hovering above all these tactics is the often brutal discipline of ruthless prioritization, the ability to ignore noise, features, and markets that detract from the core mission. Instagram removed its entire feature set, except photo sharing. WhatsApp resisted ads and complexity for years, and Stripe laser-focused on developer experience instead of chasing consumer products. When these strategies converge core value, viral loops, seeding, frictionless onboarding, distribution hacking, habit loops, PMF iteration, credibility building, paid growth, community orchestration, and ruthless focus, they create a powerful growth machine that propels startups toward the coveted million-user mark, a threshold that transforms them from fragile experiments into formidable contenders capable of reshaping industries. And as we peel back the deeper layers of how these strategies interact, we discover that scaling to 1 million users is not merely a marketing challenge, but a holistic transformation of product, psychology, operations, and narrative. Especially when we explore how the most iconic startups used these tactics not in isolation, but as a cohesive, interdependent growth engine in which each tactic reinforces the others, creating momentum far greater than the sum of its parts. And as we trace how top startups navigate this delicate choreography, we begin to see that scaling to the first million users is less about explosive marketing and more about engineering a system that accelerates itself once the foundational pieces lock together. For example, a viral loop becomes exponentially more potent when paired with frictionless onboarding. Dropbox's referral program would never have achieved its legendary conversion rates if the sign-up process hadn't been instantaneous, intuitive, and rewarding. Likewise, TikTok's unmatched virality depends on the algorithm's ability to hook new users within seconds, requiring onboarding so smooth it feels invisible. Meanwhile, seeding strategies gain force when layered with cultural positioning. Facebook's Ivy League exclusivity amplified desirability, while Clubhouse's invite-only scarcity turned early adoption into a status symbol, proving that psychological design can multiply the impact of distribution tactics. As these elements compound, the startups that win are those capable of transforming raw user influx into durable retention through habit loops and emotional resonance. TikTok's infinite scroll, Instagram's photo-first simplicity, and Spotify's personalized playlists demonstrate that habit formation is not merely about dopamine triggers, but about embedding the product into the user's identity and routines. When usage becomes habitual, word of mouth becomes inevitable, and that organic amplification dramatically lowers acquisition costs. At this stage, paid acquisition evolves from a speculative gamble into a predictable engine. Startups like Calm, Coinbase, and Revolut refine their CAC to LTV models with surgical precision, allowing them to scale user growth confidently without burning margins. This interplay, organic virality, fortifying paid growth, creates a hybrid engine that accelerates momentum past the 1 to million mark with mathematical inevitability. But what truly separates iconic startups from those that merely grow is their ability to iterate at blistering speed while maintaining product integrity, a discipline we see in Airbnb's host onboarding refinements, Uber's geographic calibration, Discord's community-centric feature evolution, and Slack's near-obsessive simplification of team communication. This level of iteration is impossible without tight feedback loops, data literacy, and a cultural willingness to kill features that stall the flywheel. Ruthless prioritization, saying no to 99% of good ideas, becomes essential because every distraction dilutes the power of compounding. Instagram's decision to strip its early product down to a single feature, photo sharing, remains one of the most valuable acts of disciplined focus in startup history. Layered on top of these operational mechanics is the often underestimated force of credibility, architecture trust signals that reduce user skepticism and lubricate conversion. Uber's Live Map was more than a UI flourish. It built psychological trust. Airbnb's verified IDs and reviews calmed fears about staying in a stranger's home. Fintech startups like N26 and Chime use transparency dashboards and instant notifications to reassure users in a domain where trust is the biggest barrier. Trust multiplies growth because every skeptical user you convert becomes a micro-advocate capable of influencing 10 more. When these growth levers form a unified system, the startup enters what experienced founders call the escape velocity zone, the point where user growth becomes self-sustaining, infrastructure begins to scale more smoothly, and the brand transitions from underdog to inevitable player. At this stage, community orchestration becomes a force multiplier. Notion's template creators, Figma's collaborative designers, and Reddit's moderators essentially became unpaid growth teams whose contributions shaped the platform's culture and expanded reach far beyond what traditional marketing could achieve. Community-driven scale is uniquely powerful because it grows in proportion to the user base rather than the marketing budget. And yet, reaching the first million users is not simply a function of executing tactics flawlessly. It requires founders to exert near-obsessive narrative control. The story a startup tells about itself becomes an invisible growth accelerant. TikTok's identity as a creativity platform, Airbnb's promise of belonging, Stripe's mission to increase GDP of the internet, and Robinhood's rhetoric of financial democratization. These narratives galvanize early adopters, attract talent, secure partnerships, and create emotional alignment that amplifies every other strategy. When narrative, product, psychology, and operations converge, a startup becomes more than a tool, it becomes a movement. Ultimately, scaling to the first million users is not a marketing milestone, but a transformation of identity. The startup evolves from a fragile idea into an autonomous organism capable of growing, adapting, and expanding without constant force from its founders. The most successful companies do not hit 1 million users through luck. They architect a growth machine in which every loop, tactic, and system compounds into unstoppable momentum. And once that momentum crystallizes, the startup is no longer chasing users. The world begins chasing the startup, marking the moment its trajectory shifts from survival to inevitability.